Okay, welcome to video number 2 of Great White Shark Chronicles. And I just want to clear something up that I made a mistake on a date with Monique Price. She was actually killed on the 24th of June 1990. I don't know where I got 1989 into my head, but she was killed on the 24th of June. And why this is, what's interesting about this actually is that June is the period in the year where the great white sharks are most prolific around that particular island, around the seal colony or Shark Island as we call it. June is always our best time of the year to find great white sharks. We generally find, if we go out for the day, 10, 12, 13 great white sharks. But what was peculiar about that particular year is that even when they put out the bounty, great white sharks were hardly seen. And when my father went out, he spent a week chumming at the island and baiting at the island. He only saw one great white shark, the 3-meter great white shark, which doesn't make any sense. And as I said right in the beginning, we don't understand so much about these animals. But so that's what happened. So she was killed in June of 1990, and by the end of 1990, the White Shark Research Unit was formed because it was in fits, and it took a while, and it was an idea, and there was a lot of discussions, and eventually my father, because by that time I also had a lot of experience, obviously as a kid, but I'd been on the water with my father after that. After my father stopped hunting great white sharks, just observing them. We would go out to sea, and we'd often have great white sharks coming around our boat or we were fishing, and we just observed these animals, and they were fantastic. It was a great time. But so the unit was formed, and now it was all about what do we do, because there was no staff. So I was asked to join the unit. I met Leonard, and we had chats and meetings, and I joined the White Shark Research Unit, and basically as a volunteer. I mean, I got a tiny salary. There was no money. It was all really voluntary stuff. So I got involved. I got some of my friends involved. I actually got my best friend Krista involved. All as volunteers, all to help us get this White Shark Research Unit going. My mother, who unfortunately passed away some years ago, she had a furniture company that produced furniture, and she helped sponsor the White Shark Research Unit in the beginning. My father, he did everything for free. He put money into the White Shark Research Unit to get it going, and he was really the driving force behind it. My two sisters, Tracy and Cherie, they spent their free time. They were both working and busy, but they spent their free time to help wherever they could. And we started producing bumper stickers that said "Save the Great White Shark" and just selling those bumper stickers and just putting that money into little things. So it started off from nothing. It started off from an atom, the Great White Shark Research Unit. And Mike Boone, a guy called Mike Boone, was actually Leonard's assistant at that time. So I moved into the offices at the Shark Center at the museum, and I shared an office with Mike Boone. And him and I had a great time. We'd sit there chatting and talk about great white sharks and sharks. And my first job was to actually work in the wet lab, which was not really, I didn't enjoy it. The formaldehyde and the smells down there and the stinking rotten sharks, and it was interesting stuff, but it wasn't for me. I wanted to be on the water. So we didn't have a research boat, we didn't have a research vehicle, but we had a vision and we had a purpose. And we decided we needed to do two things. We needed to gather funding to go out and actually buy equipment in order to do research on great white sharks out in the field. And at the same time, we had to develop a conservation driving force, a conservation front, to try and get this animal protected or at least managed. Because we sat down and we realized that the great white shark was already in trouble in those days if something wasn't done. And Mike Boone and I were actually, our first job was to go out to different areas along the coastline and find out how many great white sharks were really being caught. So we went to Straits Bay, we went to Gans Bay, we came to Mossel Bay, False Bay, and we found, just as an example, we found that in Gans Bay in 1 month, one guy that was hunting great white sharks for food and their fins and all the rest of it, killed 17. He hunted and killed 17 great white sharks in 1 month. So we kind of came back with alarming statistics or alarming information telling us that there was prolific great white shark hunting taking place along the southern African coastline, in these specific bays in the Southern Cape. And if it wasn't stopped, the population would eventually collapse. So we began campaigning to the media. We started doing a lot of media articles. We started talking about the great white shark as a vulnerable species. My father and Len, they headed up the scientific and the government driving force to get the great white shark managed, because we never ever thought that we would get the great white shark protected. I mean, this is public enemy number one. So, people don't want to protect something that eats you if you go into the ocean. And this is how people were thinking. So our first prize at that time was actually just to get the great white shark managed, which meant that if you wanted to go hunt a great white shark, you had to get a license to go hunt a great white shark. And if you did catch one, then it would have to be examined by ourselves or by Leonard, the White Shark Research Unit, before it was chopped up and cut up and that kind of thing. So we could actually keep tabs on what was going on with the population. So we had a big job. So on the one side, my dad and myself and my sisters, my mother and my best friends, even Chris Fellows, a lot of you have heard of Chris Fellows, Rob Lawrence, they still work with great white sharks, they've done a lot of documentaries. They eventually became volunteers of ours as well. So we had this, and Mike Hughes, PJ van der Walt, all kind of, when it comes to shark conservation legends, all helped to raise money and raise awareness for the great white shark. And then my father and Leonard, they were pushing the government. And we worked, and my father managed to get funding. He managed to get funding from the Mazda Wildlife Trust, which gave us enough money to buy our own 22-foot research boat. And the Mazda Corporation, the Mazda Wildlife Trust, they furnished us with a 4x4 pickup, Mazda pickup truck that we could tow the boat around. And that's how it went. I can't go into all the details because it'll be all day. So that's how it went. And eventually the White Shark Research Unit actually started operating. But before we got our own boat, and before we got our own truck and video equipment and tags and everything, we actually went on a research trip. Our very first research trip was with a guy called PJ van der Walt, and I just mentioned him. And PJ, a lot of people in this country claim that they were the first to start shark cage diving with great white sharks, and that's a lie, because PJ van der Walt in '89 was already doing great white shark cage dives, but there were no tourists, so it was friends and local people in South Africa that were going out with him. He didn't have his own boat. He used to rent trawlers or fishing trawlers and take people out to see great white sharks, but he wasn't very successful. He was trying like hell. He was really putting it out there, but he wasn't successful. So one day I'm at the museum, and Mike and I are in the office, and I don't know what we're doing. We're doing whatever shark people do. Give me a second. And we get this phone call from downstairs, and it's the security. And they say to us, listen, there's this guy downstairs, his name's PJ calls himself PJ. His name's PJ van der Walt, and he would like to come and speak to you guys about great white sharks. So, of course, anybody wants to speak about great white sharks, we there. So we started. So we told him, send PJ up. So PJ rocks up there, and he's kind of a different character. He's kind of abrupt and a bit of a know-it-all kind of guy and brash. But it doesn't matter. Anyway, he's a character. And we sit down there, and he tells us, listen, I'm trying to take people out to see great white sharks, and I'm not finding them. So I said to him, but where are you going? And he says, well, I've been working around the seal colony, Seal Island in False Bay for 3 months. I've taken people out on trips for the last 3 months, and I haven't seen one great white shark. But this was now in the summer of 1990, 1991. It was around that period. So it was probably end of 1990. I can't remember the exact date. So it was the summer months. So I said, BJ, but the sharks are not at the island in the summer months. They move away from the island, and you'll find them off Macassa Beach. And he said, are you sure? I said, yep, I'm 100% sure. That is where you're going to find the great white sharks. I said, you're just looking for them in the wrong place. So he said, well, I've got a trip coming up this weekend, and would you like to join? I said, hell yeah, we want to join. So anyway, Leonard, Mike Boone and myself, we were told to meet PJ in the harbour at 6 o'clock in the morning. It was a Saturday morning, and he hired this trawler, I can't remember the name of it. And so we rocked up there, and we're waiting for PJ, and eventually, like, he rocks up at 10 o'clock in the morning. We've been there since 6, so we pissed off, and I'm pissed off, and I'm like, where the hell were you? It's like, what the fuck? And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I had so much to do, I had to run around, I had to get baits, and I did this and that. And he had good baits. He had chunks of seal, and he had chunks of whale, and he had whale oil. And anyway, once we got into the whole thing of now we're going to look for great white sharks, all was forgiven. So we loaded the stuff onto the boat, and I said to PJ, I went to the captain of the boat, and I said to PJ, if you don't mind, I'm going to tell the captain exactly where to go. So PJ said, you do it. So I went to the captain, I said to the captain, listen, this is where I want you to go. I want you to head down towards the water tower off Macassa Beach, and I want you to look for about 22 to 25 meters of water and anchor there. That's where we're going to go find great white sharks. So, I don't know, PJ probably had about 10 clients on the boat, and we steamed out. Off we went down the coast towards Macassa Beach, and I went on top. I was standing on the roof once we got closer to Macassa Beach. And I actually said to the captain that I'll shout to him when we're in the right position. I just want to know the depth. And we're steaming out, we're cruising out. It's a beautiful, beautiful day. And while I'm standing up there, we're probably about a half a kilometer from where I wanted to stop the boat and throw anchor. And there I see a great white shark cruising on the surface. Just cruising along on the surface of the water. So I start stamping on the roof of the cabin. PJ pops his head out. I said, dude, there's a great white shark right there. And this guy goes ballistic. I mean, he's been taking people out for 3 months. He hasn't seen a great white shark. So he's freaking out. And I'm laughing at him because he's in a nutcase. So anyway, I say, just drop anchor here. So we drop anchor, and PJ starts going off at the back of the boat. So now he gets his chum out. So I'm keeping out the way. He's got some assistant helping him there. And it becomes a freaking nightmare on the back of that boat because he is so excited. He's got this whale oil, and he's spilling it all over the deck, and his clients are sliding up and down as if they're on ice. And he decants about 10 liters of this beautiful whale oil, which is the best chum you can get in the world. And he just throws it into the water. And then he starts messing around with baits and stuff. And I just watch this big chum pool, this big oil slick moving away from the boat. And I said to PJ, PJ, there's another reason you're not getting your sharks. And he said, what do you mean? I said, do you always chum like this? He said, yeah, it's train chum, man. I said, no, you can't do that. I said, what you're doing, you're creating a chum pool. And the sharks are going to pick it up and they're going to follow it because there's no source. There's no source to it. It's just a big loaded chum thrown in the water and the sharks will follow it away from the boat. So he said, what do I do? So I said, just take one of your cans and punch a few small holes into it with a knife and just hang it over the water and let it slowly drip and go. And I said, that's how you chum for great white sharks. And he did it. And within 10 minutes, we had our first shark at the boat. And eventually we had 5 great white sharks around the back of that boat. And it was exciting. That was our first research trip. How long have I been going on with this video? I'm not quite sure. I think I should actually stop this because it's quite a long story, because this was also the first time we ever tagged a great white shark as a white shark research unit. It was the first time a great white shark had been tagged by us in False Bay in the Cape Waters. So I'm going to stop the video now and I'll continue it with the next video. Thank you.